Hello everyone, this is Priya Kannan of Shemrock Sree Playschool in Chromepet. Today, this video is going to talk about the importance of a play school. What is a play school? What do we do in a play school? And why is it relevant? When we were in our younger years, the concept was virtually unheard of, except in certain exception cases, where the parents were perhaps, had the capacity or the ability for it back then, and they would choose these exclusive schools that were not easily accessible, and perhaps in those exception cases, it was a possibility and they might have had that exposure. But certainly, as far as I can recall, in my generation anyway, that was not the norm, sending children to play school. But today, that's not the case. The whole trend has changed. The whole system of education, as we know, has completely undergone a radical change, particularly in India. Today, you need to enroll a child as early as 2 years in order to be able to continue in the school. Having said that, continuity cannot be the only reason why you put a child in a play school. So let's look at the purpose of this video, which is why do we need a play school? What is the relevance of it? And should I really put my child in play school today, or do I have the option of just waiting it out until he reaches the age where I need to put him in his kindergarten, like LKG? Did you know that 2/3 of brain development actually takes place by the time the child reaches the age of 2, and the remaining 1/3 of the brain development takes place by the time the child reaches the age of 4? If this is the case, then utmost care of the child is crucial during this period, don't you think? Now, having said that, early care, early childhood care and nurturing have a decisive and a lasting impact on how the child develops into adulthood and how the child develops their ability to learn, and also how the child develops their capacity to regulate their emotions. Now, why is this relevant? Why? I mean, you're probably thinking like she's using big words, but it's not. It's fairly simple. Have you seen a lot of 4-year-olds or children in the age group of 3 to 4 typically? You will see a lot of aggression taking place. You will see a lot of tantrums typically starting at that age. Particularly at 4, they will be out of hand. It will be impossible to control them. Why? Because they've not had the right nurturing. They've not had the right conducive environment wherein they were able to channelize their energies in the right direction. Now that is where play schools come into play. They play a crucial role in developing just this. Therefore, the child knows how to harness that energy that is there in them in the right way. They know how to regulate their emotions. They know it's not just about playtime or sending a child to a school just to spend a few hours a day, and certainly not to learn ABC and 1, 2, 3. Believe me, anybody can do that at home themselves if that's just the only criteria. You do not need a play school for it. Most parents have at least enough time on their hands to teach them the alphabets to some extent, and at least numbers 1 to 10. And most kids today know it already by the time they come into play school, or by the time they start to develop speech. They've already heard many rhymes. So by the time a child comes in at the age of 2.5, he already has heard of the wheels on the bus go round and round, and ring, ring, go away. They already know all this to some extent. Even though they don't know the full rhyme, they certainly know a part of it, a line or a word here and there, a catchy phrase. So you don't need a play school for this. Although that is part of the play school's curriculum as well, giving them the much needed stepping stone, as it were, that would help them be well prepared for primary school and for higher classes. But what is the role? I mean, beyond and over and above this, there has to be some essential element as to why early childhood care education is to be given some consideration and importance. Well, it is certainly possible for a child who has not been into play school, who has not had the structured pattern of learning, who has not had this much needed nurturing at that crucial age of 2 or 3 or 4, While it is certainly possible to learn these basic skills at a later stage, it is often very difficult. Children whose basic needs are not met in infancy will typically be distrustful, and they may not believe in themselves and in others. They Children who do not receive that much needed guidance have a greater chance of being anxious, frightened, impulsive, and behaviorally disorganized by the time that they reach school. Of course, the brain has its own capacity, tremendous capacity for self-recovery and for self-protection. But the loving care and nurture children receive in their first years have a lasting and decisive impact for the rest of their lives. It leaves lasting imprints on young minds. That's why a play school is very, very crucial. And that's why parents should find the right play school or a preschool and have their children enrolled. But when I say right play school, what is the deciding criteria? What are the checklists that one needs to look for? I would say a play school should ideally be a combination of Montessori as well as multiple intelligences. When I say Montessori, I mean, today you'll find every play school talking about playway method. They'll all talk about conceptual learning. They'll all talk about Montessori. Okay, all things are nice when said, but what do they actually mean by that? And how far do their curriculum and their syllabuses or their method of delivery goes towards establishing that, towards doing justice to those words, to those terms, Montessori as well as multiple intelligences. So what is Montessori? Montessori is basically observing a child in action and allowing him to blossom on his own by watching what it is that makes him tick, by watching what it is that his natural inclination is towards, what is it that he has an affinity towards. Find that out and then nurture him through those interests. That's one way. That's Montessori. Now that alone won't do. Why? Because we all inherently as humans have multiple capacities, multiple capabilities in us, but more often than not it never flowers. It has never had a chance to flower. So by the time life takes its toll on a person, where do we even have the chance to think of allowing our inherent interests to blossom? We just haven't got the time. We haven't got either the time or the means or the opportunity or the energy. You know, as you get older, the older you get, the lesser are your chances. But you do it at the right time, at the right age, it has a certain impact that leaves a lasting imprint in shaping a person's personality overall, socially, cognitively, emotionally, psychologically, and physically, in every way. This is what we mean when we say overall holistic development of a child. So now what do we mean by multiple intelligences? So when I say multiple intelligences, we all have around 7 or 8 intelligences in us, which is inherent. But more often than not, it never flowers, or if it does, 1 or 2 maybe. So we want to make sure that a child that comes to our school has that conducive environment, has the right opportunity, so that the child is given the much needed tools, the much needed nurturing and care, so that it blossoms all the intelligences in them. So when I say, for instance, some children have an ability to listen to music, in the sense they're musically inclined. And there are kids who are visually inclined, and there are some who are that have great cognitive abilities. When I say great cognitive abilities, for instance, and there are many cognitive abilities, for just as an example, problem solving or lateral thinking. But problem solving, let's take it much more simple. So when I say problem solving, what am I talking about? In the case of a 2.5-year-old, what on earth am I talking about? You might be wondering. Well, have you noticed a child, when you give them something that they like, while they are in the height of their drama or their tantrum, they would immediately become quiet. Why? It's because it's not just because it's a new object that you're giving them that's, is novel, and for a while that novelty lasts and they're silent. No. I'm talking about something that really engages them, engages their minds, their brains in a creative way. For instance, there are children in our school that I have observed who would cry the moment the parents leave them and go. Of course, they're very young. Naturally, the separation anxiety is going to be there, both on the parent side as well as on the child side. So that's natural. But how do we pacify them? We don't say it's all right, it's all right, it's all right. I mean, you can say that to some extent, but you can't always keep saying that. You have to do something that's going to make them feel safe. That's going to make them feel comfortable with the people around, with their environment and their surroundings. So number one thing is the security of the child. What do I mean when I say security? The child's first and foremost security is the mother from age 0 until that point that they're bringing him to a school. So therefore, they're leaving their comfort zone, their security space, and they're moving into a new place. For the first time, they're being introduced to social interaction. When I say social interaction, from that other than that they've been introduced to early on by way of their mother, the father, the grandparents, and so on. But here they're actually being exposed. It's like a first early step that they're taking into the world. And that's the very first step that therefore they are taking towards what it means to interact with the outside world. That is not part of their own comforting circle. So that transition from home to school has to be a smooth one. If a child is daunted by the prospect of going into a crowded school or going into a school where there are older children, more often than not, their inherent natural confidence, natural courage, and natural capacities tend to diminish or get suppressed. Some children are inherently very strong mentally, and therefore they might somehow just break through and come up. But that's not the case with everybody. As we all know from our own personal experiences, when we are faced with something larger than ourselves, then we can't just quite bring ourselves to be what we wanted to be, at least in that moment. So as this continues over a period of time, the child's inherent intelligences tend to get suppressed. And this is one of the reasons why it doesn't flower. That's why a play school that is conducive for learning, where it's not a school that's part of a larger school. It has to be a school which is a unit on its own. It has to be a unit on its own, and I say this because if you allow a child, for the reasons that I just said, to mix with much older kids, the prospect of moving from the transition from home to school in itself is quite daunting for them, because they're leaving their comfort zones, they're leaving the arms of their cherished mom, and they're moving into a new place where they have to deal with new faces for the first time, faces that they are not used to, people that they're not used to, voices that they're not used to. So this transition has to be a very smooth one. And on top of it, if they have to deal with, besides the fact that they're dealing with so many other things like other adults, other teachers, and other students in their own classes, now you have older kids along, that is just too much to take in. It results in all sorts of behavioral disorderly behavioral problems later on, because the impression, the mark it leaves on the young brains, which was up until that point of time just clear, with absolutely no blemish. Now for the first time, these experiences, as they start to set in, that is not exactly nurturing, but rather daunting and quite scary for a young mind. As adults, we may say, yeah, we've all been through that and we'll get over it. Sure, you'll get over it. But would you say that you could have done a lot more? Do you believe that what you are is what you are, and you could have, or do you really believe in your heart that you could have done a lot more if you had the opportunity, or if you had the right environment, if you had all the right circumstances? How would your life be? I'm not for one suggesting that life is depressing the way it is for anybody, but I'm just saying that the possibilities could have been a lot more. Perhaps, or maybe you achieved your fullest. Good for you, but that's not the case for a lot of people. A lot of people would have liked to do this. Would have wished. They would wish I would have liked to do that. I would have done that if I had taken that route. I would have done that if I'd had this opportunity. So this is one of the crucial reasons. See, the imprints that happen in the brain at an early age is fundamentally crucial in developing you as who you are as you mature and grow up. You may turn out to be a very soft-spoken, sweet kind of person, or you may turn out to be a right bully. But this is not just about value system alone, but it goes way deeper than that. It goes way deeper into your psyche to a point where psychologically it defines you. Basically your personality, it lays the very foundation for either a strong foundation, strong and broad foundation, which is going to have a lasting impact for the rest of your life, or the lack of it. So that's why a play school gives you that much needed guidance, that much needed nurturing that will allow the child to blossom in every way possible. So that by the time, it's not just, I have to stress this again, it's not a place where it's a preparatory school that prepares a child for primary. It is not. That is one of the things that we do, but that is not the main aim of any good play school or preschool. A play school or a preschool should be a place that not just prepares a child academically ready for higher classes, but most importantly, it's a school that will lay down a very strong and a good foundation, a solid foundation for a child who is eventually going to develop into an adult someday and bring out the best in him in every way possible. And for that, this nurturing environment is much needed. So when I say multiple intelligences, this is what I mean. A child, for instance, you give him a building block. When I say problem-solving ability is inherently strong in a particular boy or a girl, and they are crying when they are left in the school and the parent is gone, what we do is we try to observe first and see what it is that makes the child think, what it is that calms them, what it is that makes them, engages their mind creatively in such a way that for a moment there, they have, something else has caught their interest to a point where they just lose themselves in that activity. And therefore the mind is very creatively and fully engaged. So when you give them a building block to some people, what they'll do is, I've noticed that they'll disassemble the whole thing, because they want to see how it was put together in the first place. Now, what does that go to say about a child? It goes to say, it basically points to the fact that he or she inherently has great problem-solving skills. They want to see how something is decoded first to understand how it was coded in the first place. You see, now the possibilities for them are endless if you nurture them in the right direction. They could become great architects someday, or they could become great engineers, or they could become great software programmers or coders. You never know, the possibilities are endless. So as early on, when these inherent traits in them is identified by any good educationist, and always bear in mind, play school is a partnership. It's a three-way relationship between the teacher, the parent, and the child. Only then, once that's established, then it really works. If it's just one-sided where the parent thinks it's the teacher's problem, we'll just leave the child in the school, what she learns, he learns, and he comes home and then I put him to an afternoon nap and, fine, he's ready now for his first time. No, that's not the way to look at it. It's a partnership, there has to be synergy. And the parent who walks into any good play school must be advised of all these things. Because for most people who don't know about all this, they have to be informed. So that there is that awareness and there is that conscious awareness. There's that conscious decision making on their part to choose a school for all the right reasons. Not just merely to just put them away somewhere because you're looking for a daycare, or just put them away somewhere for a few hours to kill the boredom. It can't be just that. Playtime is important, but that's not the only aspect of a play school. Academics is important, but that is again certainly not the only aspect of a play school. There are multiple facets to a play school, and anybody who's given some thought to these things, or who gets this message will resonate with what I'm saying. They can definitely resonate with what I'm saying. Therefore, That's why a play school is crucial. Don't think it's just 2 years old and you don't need to go to school. You need to go to school precisely because you're 2 years old. Because if you're much older, you can't have this building blocks for the rest of your life. That somebody helps you to put together and have a strong foundation. Therefore, when a child is please do not ever think that the child is too young for school. They're actually ripe for school. They're ripe for school. That age won't come again. Why? Because at the age of 2, the brain development is such that there's trillions of synapses. So by synapses, I mean the neural connections that the brain makes. So not that the brain is going to grow any further and develop more cells. Actually, it is established. There's a study that's been established, and it says clearly that the number of brain cells in that of a 2-year-old is the same as that of an adult's brain. But what's the difference? The difference are the synapses. Now, what do I mean by synapses and connections? The neural network that happens in the brain. The brain has a possibility to make all sorts of connections depending on your experiences and your knowledge. And it fine-tunes itself. Now, in the case of a 2-year-old's brain, there are trillions of synapses. Why? Because as yet the personality is yet to take shape. As yet the likes and dislikes, the preferences, whatever it is that makes a person's personality is yet to form. It's at a very, very early incipient stage. Whereas an adult's brain, you won't find trillions of synapses any longer. Why? Because their personality is well defined. And so what has happened to the remaining synapses? They just wither away. They just go away, in the sense that what is not needed, you lose. It's lost. Not that you can't regain it. For instance, if I were to go to France and live there, I can very well learn French even today. Not that my brain is close to the possibility of learning French, but the natural ability to learn many things just by observing and just absorbing. That is very strong in that of a 2-year-old's brain. And that's why the possibilities are endless for a 2-year-old, and that's why it's crucial. It's very crucial to put them in school at the right time. That said, I know there is a lockdown going on right now, unfortunately, but it's all for the good. Having said that, to keep a child at home for too long is not a good thing without engaging them in a way that their minds are going to be absorbed in some creative activity. By that I don't mean just allowing them and indulging them in just playtime. Playtime is very crucial, like I said, but at the same time, you need to have a structured pattern. Particularly if you're going to go into your LKG and UKG and higher classes, it becomes all the more challenging, because though the government has given a lot of relaxations and have instructed schools to just move them from one grade to the other, the question is how are they going to catch up with the syllabus? The question is how are they going to be able to cope up with the learning? It's not just about passing and having a grade, it's about learning. And if learning is lost, you can't just, without learning ABC, you can't jump to reading a sentence. The same way, you need to go through the stages, you need to go through the steps, and that's why it becomes crucial. When we say creatively engaging a 2-year-old, we don't mean, there's rhymes to be learned or this to be learned or that to be learned, but it's a whole package, the whole system of early education is a package. It's not just aimed simply at academics alone. Of course, if it were to be aimed only at academics, then you can very well keep your child in the house for the next 1 year, or whenever the situation clears sufficiently enough for us to send our children to school. But there's much more. For all the reasons that I've explained in this video, and I hope you will acknowledge and give it some consideration, it is crucial that you engage your child creatively by enrolling them in any good school which runs good online programs. When I say online programs, I must make it clear that there is absolutely no screen time whatsoever. All you have to do is register in Google Classroom and send the email address with which you registered the app to the school, and we will send you the activity that you want to engage your child with by email. That's all there is to it. The child does not ever have to sit in front of a computer. First of all, it's not conducive to make a child sit. Notwithstanding that, it's certainly not possible to make a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old sit in one place. Try it. Try all you might, but you won't be able to make them sit in front of a computer for even 5 minutes unless there's an interesting cartoon going on. And cartoons and movies is not the only way, but there is a certain time for everything, and the day has to be structured in a nice way so that there is no boredom creeping into a child, which again results in aggressive behavior and a lot of frustration, resulting in venting out of energy, not knowing how to regulate it. Therefore, we have a structured program that runs from the time that they wake up till their bedtime. Of course, for parents that are working, it can be challenging to engage them the whole day, and they don't have to. The main thing is engage them at least for an hour a day. Surely we all spend some time on our own, little escapes like YouTube or WhatsApp or Facebook. If you can do that for ourselves, we can't possibly use any excuse for our children's welfare, because a child's needs, it's called today. It's not called tomorrow. A child's needs are important today, and it can't wait. Therefore, in the best interest of your children, it's not just in the interest of parents. You have to take the overall picture into account. Parents can say we are too busy, we can't engage the child even for a few hours. You don't have to. Not when it comes to a preschool, not when it comes to LKG, UKG or the playgroup. You just need to give them at least 1 hour of your time, getting them to do at least one activity from this daily schedule that we send from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. or until the bedtime. And the important thing is, we also introduce children to very good reading books. If you have time to read a bedtime story, that's great, because it's not only develops a habit of some nice bonding between the parent and the child in a beautiful way, but also it helps a child's mind attune itself to a language other than its native language. And this is very important in today's world. Language and communication skills are crucial. To say that I don't need to speak English is a little short-sighted. So therefore, it's very important to know English is a must today. It's an international language today, and it is the norm in most places in any work environment. It takes you a long way. So you certainly need to know, besides your own native language, it's very important to have some fluency and some grasp of the English language. And the earlier you introduce a child to it, for the reasons that I spoke of with regard to brain development, I'm sure you will understand the importance that it plays, these bedtime stories. So we send you audiobooks because we understand parents are tired at the end of the day and they need their own me time. Therefore, we would send every day in our daily schedule audiobooks that you just have to play to the child. Any book, I mean, there is a vast library of books that we send. Whatever it is that takes the child's fancy, whatever it is that she feels like hearing, you just have to play it on your phone or on your laptop, and you can just get on with your work while the child listens to it and falls asleep as she or he is listening to it. This registers in their young minds, this new vocabulary, these new concoction of words and phrases and the rhythmic pattern with which a certain language is spoken. All these things, when it registers in the mind, understanding, comprehensibility, and ability to speak or at least respond starts early on. And there is a certain confidence that comes with that. Why? Because this is not a native language for any of us. It is a language that is still an alien language for us, but it is a must, it's a needed language. It has a lot of practical utility. To overlook it would be very short-sighted. So therefore, I hope this video has given you a sufficient idea of what a play school is, what a good play school should be like, what is meant by Montessori and multiple intelligences, and why it is important in the life of a child who is just 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old. Why early childhood care and education and this nurturing is much needed. I hope it was useful to you listening to all this, and I hope you do find a good school. You can always enroll your child in our school, and all you have to do is just give us a call and we'll guide you through the process. Our number is 9004 880 449. Thank you.